With day two. Yesterday we talked about the rock cycle. Today we're going to talk about how we break these rocks down through a process known as weathering. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So once again, we are still in Unit 4, reviewing through the unit. So the first slide we come to is what is weathering? So weathering is the breakdown of rocks at the Earth's surface. And there are two types of weathering. The first one is mechanical, and the second one is chemical. In class, we said we were going to put linking words to these. So the linking word that we want to attach to mechanical will be the word physical. And the linking word that we'll attach to chemical will be composition. And we'll talk a little bit about those as we kind of move along here. So, what is mechanical weathering? It is the physical forces that break rocks into smaller pieces. It does not change the rock's composition, and there are three ways in which we can do this: frost wedging, unloading, and biological activity. So, mechanical weathering, which is the first one, water will get into the cracks and crevices of the rocks. Eventually, it'll freeze, causing the water to expand as ice, and it'll break the rock into smaller pieces. Maybe a little bit of a better example that you guys may be more familiar with is putting a glass bottle of a liquid, some type of liquid, in the freezer, or even a can of soda in the freezer, and you forget about it. And you come back to it in a few days, and unknowing that the bottle or the can has broken open and it has broken into smaller pieces, and the liquid has gone all over the freezer. The second type of mechanical weathering is unloading. This is the uplift of weathered rocks that overlies igneous rocks. And then, of course, the question is, why does it happen? It happens due to the pressure on the igneous rocks is reduced, causing the uplift. And then if you kind of look over here, this huge chunk of rock that's been pushed upward, you can see these slabs of rock that are starting to come off of this uplift. And this is due to weathering, but it's known as exfoliation, which is this definition down here. Slabs of outer rock separate and break and become loose and slide down the uplifted rock. The third and final type of mechanical weathering is biological activity, and these are the activities of living organisms. The picture here sports a very good example of what we're talking about. The example here would be wedging in a form in which the roots grow up through the rock. A better example would be if you're walking down the streets of, say, Greenville, New Bern, Kinston, and you happen to see the sidewalk is pushed up and cracked, and you happen to notice that there's a huge tree growing right there by the sidewalk, something maybe like a walnut tree or maybe even an oak tree. And these trees, the roots will grow away from the main trunk of the tree, and it will push the concrete up and cause it to break, which is a very good example of biological activity. Moving on to the next type of weathering is chemical. Chemical is the transfer of rock into one or more types of compounds. This is through the process of chemical reactions. And as we said, let's take the moment to kind of stop for a second here and go back to those linking words. When we were looking at mechanical weathering, we're talking about physical. We're basically changing the physical features. But when we got to chemical, we're looking at the overall composition, what the makeup of it is. We're going to change the makeup. So that's how those two link words kind of fall into play here. The agents of chemical weathering, the first one here is water, which is the most important agent. It picks up gases from the atmosphere. The second one is oxygen, which causes oxidation of metal minerals, better known as rusting. And the third and final is carbon dioxide, which combines with water to form carbonic acid, better known as acid rain. So what are the effects of this weathering in the environment? Well, if we look over here at the statue, which is granite, the minerals are turned into clay due to acid rain. And you can see that the high definition of this statue has been kind of erased over time. Okay, and weathering is a process that takes over time. and it's been washed away by water, some of the materials. The next one down here we're looking at is the spheroidal weathering, where we have the corners of the rock have been rounded. And this is yet another method of chemical weathering. And then last but not least is, how does this happen? What is the rate of weathering? What affects it? The biggest two characteristics of a rock that causes mechanical and chemical weathering deals with mineral composition as well as mineral solubility. And then, of course, the environmental stimuli, the environmental factors that cause this are temperature, moisture, biological, and more importantly, it favors high temperature and abundant moisture. And so that's all we're going to cover for today, guys. So we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.